Okay, so this is about 1 pound of urea, 46% strength. So it's about a half a pound, or a little less than half a pound of actual nitrogen. And I'm just going to sprinkle it on the ground and water it in. Now, it might be better. I mean, you could dissolve it in water and then pour it on the ground, which might be a little bit handier, but it can be sprinkled on the ground as long as it's watered in well. You want it to penetrate deep into the ground. So now I've spread the urea out on the ground, roughly at the, or just slightly inside of the drip line. You know, you could apply it out here. Doesn't matter that much. And same thing on this side. I mean, I didn't even bother putting it on the other side of the fence. You know, this should be adequate. Okay, I'm going to hose in now. Just to give you an idea. I won't keep this on very much longer, but the main thing is to dissolve all the urea pellets, and then go a little bit longer, you know, so that it soaks in below the surface of the ground. I have this bag and these pieces of tape here because there's a hole in the bag, and just going to get rid of all the urea. Okay, folks have asked me if they plant an avocado seed, will it grow into a tree? And the answer is yes, it will, but it won't produce the same fruit as that which came off the parent tree. In this case, it's a Haas avocado, and in order to make a seedling, if you do plant a seed into a Haas, it has to be grafted, which is another topic for another day. But most of you will probably just, I mean, it really doesn't make sense to do that, because you can buy trees already grafted by professionals, and you know, and not bother with the toil of trying to graft a tree. A neighbor lady asked me, she had a small Haas avocado, you know, it was about a year old, and it was growing real well, but she wanted to know if she needed to prune it or cut any of the branches off, and the answer is no, you don't need to do that. They're just best left alone until they get so big that they're crowding their neighbors, or in the case of a household, you know, well, you've all seen my tree here. It's been totally butchered on one side because it's right next to the house. So that's a different decision. But a commercial grower like this one here, he's just letting them grow, and this is the maximum best practice for growing commercial avocados. And eventually, you know, he'll have to top them. You know, you don't want them growing too tall. I've mentioned that before. I don't like them much more than 12, 14 feet high, so that I can pick them from the ground with a picking pole and don't have to climb up in the tree. Although, you know, that can be done, and in some cases it's probably easier than trying to do it with a pole. If you have an experienced picker, you can climb right up there and pick a cluster of avocados up a little bit higher, and it'd be difficult to reach with a pole. Then I saw a friend of mine from back in my running days, and he's growing avocados on a small piece of ground up in the foothills, and some deer came along and you know, chewed off all the leaves, and that's really unfortunate. And if you have a problem like that, it's best to protect the tree with some chicken wire or something. Keep the deer out of there. And the other thing is, if you do have a young tree and it's defoliated, you know, I had this happen at my ranch. They were by a freeze. You know, a freeze, and these Haas avocados are frost sensitive. they'll start to suffer if it gets below freezing. And they could, you know, a young tree, you know, if it gets down like it did one time at my place, Arctic Express got down to 25 degrees, a young tree will probably be killed. It just won't live if it's down that low for many hours. And at this place here, they actually use, in the old days, they used to use smudge pots. Well, you know, those aren't too good, you know, for the environment, burning kerosene or whatever they did. But they have fans, you know, big, almost as big as a, you know, aircraft, big, huge fans, and air circulation will stir up the sinking cold air. It'll just, you know, it'll raise the temperature enough. If it's 28, 29, 30 degrees for a couple hours, they may not suffer any damage. But if they do, and this is the point I wanted to get to, is you want to paint the tree with some cheap latex, you know, and you can do your own research on this, but I used to dilute it, you know, maybe 50%, and apply it with a Hudson sprayer or something, which goes very quickly. But those, you know, those stems and that are real new and green, they will sunburn, and that can be also very damaging, if not lethal, to a young avocado tree. Hey, there's my little lizard friend. Roundup, I'll get to that with some screenshots. You know, you can look up, or people who are worried about this, there's so much data on this material that, you know, and testing has been done. I think you would be reassured that this isn't something easily translocated by water runoff. It's highly adsorbed onto the soil, the little bit that doesn't stick to the leaves. You know, it's just not likely to go very far. And stand by. What I wanted to talk about is, you know, they test these materials, and, you know, the ultimate test is the lethal dose. You know, how much of the material does it take to actually kill let's say a rat population, you know, lab rats. And so they'll feed them the material, and they come at a number where half of the subject population dies and half of it survives. They call that LD50. And so that's just a measure of orally ingesting the material, say glyphosate. And and I'll put up a screenshot. But this material, full strength, not this diluted 2% strength, or the commercial, say 5 or even 75% strength glyphosate, but the pure material is less toxic than table salt or aspirin or caffeine, which is, by the way, caffeine is very, very deadly. I think there was some time back somebody offered, I can't remember his name, but, you know, a big greenie back in the 70s, and he said, well, I'll ingest an equal amount of plutonium if you'll take that amount of pure strength caffeine. And the guy refused to take him up on the challenge. So it's all about the dose, you know. I mean, you can die from drinking too much water. I think people know that. You'll just wash out all the micronutrients in your body and die. And just today somebody was going on about the fentanyl. You know, these legends get started in 60 minutes blabbing about fentanyl. You know, you can't touch it. Somebody's got gloves and a respirator. And you need to be skeptical. And I've always been skeptical when I hear claims like that. You know, you just go, well, how can that be? How can something that you take internally by prescription, how can that kill you if you simply touch it. And of course, if you do your own research, you'll discover that it's just crazy talk. And I've had friends, intelligent people, repeat these make these claims, you know.